absolutely. And I truly I say that this film is like a love letter, a love note to the person who's out there struggling. So for me, it was like, how will I help, or how will they know that they're not alone if I pull the punches and I make it look really pretty? I'm like, if anything, they'll feel worse because they're like, that's not what my depression looks like. That's not what my mental health struggles look like. So I really, yeah, I didn't want to pull any punches.
Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Palace. Today I'm talking to Nadine Crocker of Continue, which is coming to theaters, digital, and on demand on September 6, 2024. I'm going to talk to her right now, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. I'll spend a lot. Thank you. So, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Nadine Crocker, the writer, director, and star of Continue, which is coming to theaters, digital, and on demand on September 6, 2024. It is a personal, painful, and deeply kind of like distressing but also wonderful journey that I assume is a very, very true story, a very true to life story. It has just a fantastic story arc, some really amazing effects that show you just how bad mental health and depression can be, and also a really wonderful ending. So I'm very excited to talk to you, and thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you for watching the
Of
film.
course, no, of course. I was it was tough to watch at times, which I mean that's clearly the point. That's the point of this movie is to like not pull any punches, which I loved. I love that it kind of like showed how bad it can get because you need that starting point to then appreciate everything else in the film afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I truly I say that this film is like a love letter, a love note to the person who's out there struggling. So for me, it was like, how will I help, or how will they know that they're not alone if I pull the punches and I make it look really pretty? I'm like, if anything, they'll feel worse because they're like, that's not what my depression looks like. That's not what my mental health struggles look like. So I really, yeah, I didn't want to pull any punches.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so this is billed as a confessional. It seems like a very true story. I assume it is, but this is, I assume, based on your life, based on your experiences. Of seems like a fairly probably true to form of what you went through, or things that happened to you in your life as you kind of like dealt with mental health and depression. So, what made you want to tell this story? It sounds like you were just trying to like give something for other people to watch and maybe kind of like, I don't know, empathize with, but then also see a ray of hope from.
Yeah, I mean, so it's based on true events. It is absolutely based on the many attempts I made on my life in my 23rd year of life. My 20s were really hard, as I know they are for a lot of people. But especially at 23, I very much unraveled, and I was in the depths of my addiction, which I'm 9 years sober, and I and was in the depths of my depression and suicidal ideation. And so, yeah, it's based on a lot from my life. And I also come from a family of suicide, and I actually lost my grandfather, but for the story purposes and the conversations I've had with my father my whole life, because he very much so has mental health struggles, same as me. Our whole family does, truthfully.
Wow.
So yeah, for me, it was just hoping that if I opened up and was brave enough to put my pain out there, maybe other people would too, because one of the hardest things about mental health is there hasn't always been an open communication about it. There hasn't, oh, it for a very long time was very taboo to speak about. And I think we are going in the right direction to change that. But I very much so have been fighting to open that conversation, and to bring this story to the world. And so, yeah, for me, it was to make a film that helped those who are out there struggling and hopefully got them to live another day and to be here tomorrow. But it was also to help educate those who have maybe never experienced mental health, or the depths of pain that I personally have experienced, So there's even scenes in there, like there's a scene where Trenton and Dean, Shiloh Fernandez character, and my character are by the pool, and she's trying to explain what suicidal ideation is to her, or like depression, and what that looks like. And that was a very real conversation from my life, trying to explain to my mother how I could not want to be here, and what it felt like for me. So yeah, it was just like, how can I bear my story, my pain, and also my growth and my evolution and help other people realize that they can do that too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like that you said it was also to, to connect with people that maybe have had these issues in their family or in themselves, but then also to connect with people that don't, have an experience with this. Because that was, thankfully my family doesn't have a history of mental health issues and things like that. But there were some parts in this film when I was like, why would she do that? Like, I didn't understand it, but just like seeing that sometimes there is no explanation. Sometimes you don't know why you do certain things. You just like, you get into a spiral and it's worse and worse. And at some point you just have to pull yourself out was, I think, important to see. Because like, sometimes it's not logical. Sometimes there's not a reason for it. It just happens and you kind of have to like deal with the consequences and work your way back up.
Well, and it's like sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, right? But the other thing like that came to my mind when you just said that, like why would she do that and stuff like that? And I love that conversation because it's like, well, if your family member had cancer, would you be like, why do they have cancer? Why would they do that? And it's like it's mental illness. We don't have control over the fact that our mind is sick and it's turning on us, and we have to seek professional help and medical help to get our minds healthy. And for me, it looks like an army of human beings to keep me really strong in hard times. So it's like, I think for people who have never experienced that, it's realizing, and the same thing I say all the time, like we teach physical health in school, but we teach people nothing about emotional health. So and it's very much the same thing. It's a disease, and it is our mind turning on us. So so that's another thing I was trying to show is like, yeah, it's not like Dean doesn't want to be better. It's not like I don't want to be better or all of these different things. It's just sometimes like really our mind starts to tell us a story that isn't true. And then all of a sudden we're pushing people away when really all we want is someone to be close, like it isn't always rational, the weird subconscious things we do either, like we're sabotaging when we really, really want this thing, it's just like, so I love that you said that because, it opens my eyes up to other parts of the conversation too. And, looking at our patterns as human beings. And again, sometimes we can stand in our own way.
Yeah, for sure. And also, given how bad America is at physical health that is taught in schools, perhaps we should teach some mental health to like raise that bar up. Because like, like mental health is, like you said, it's becoming more, non-taboo. It's becoming more of an open conversation, which is great. But it still is something that can be a little taboo. Even your character showed that when after they had committed suicide, you're like, well, I'm not suicidal. Like you clearly are, like you did that, but you don't want to admit it to yourself, or you don't want to like, you know, be cut put that label on you because for whatever reason or stigma for family issues or just for your own self-worth, which I think is an interesting point in the film as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that scene came from truth. And like my story does differ a lot from Dean's with after the attempt and on, I lied my ass off. I really did everything I could to avoid health, but really because at the time I wanted to be an actor, it's like, you're not going to get a job if you have a 5150 on your record. And then not to mention every job you ever apply for can see that on your, like, it just like was all these conversations. It was like, doesn't matter if I'm literally in the depths of hell right now. I'm going to lie because I don't want to not get that job 10 years in the future that at this rate, I'm not even going to be here for, it's like, again, not really rational, but in that moment, I was so worried about, the stigma that would surround people knowing that at some point I have a 5150 on my record, so it's just, yeah, it's really funny. And I couldn't agree with you more about the mental health, about the healthcare system, but also, yeah, I just hope that there's a big change in the healthcare system in general, because also not to
Yes.
mention that it's so expensive to get mental health services.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a necessary thing, but then your shell, if you have insurance, it's not that expensive, but it's still a constant fee. And if you don't have insurance, God, like I hope you have a lot of resources to be able to put towards yourself because it is a very expensive endeavor.
Yeah, well, and also though, a lot of things that like most people don't know this, but majority of therapists and psychiatrists don't even take insurance. They do something called a super bill. So you can like put it towards your insurance later and they'll cover a small portion, but most great offices that have really great doctors don't even accept insurance. So and if you go to a not great mental health care professional, that can also be really detrimental too. I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of really, really sad stories take place from going to a mental health care professional who didn't quite do their job in the way that I think is fit and prescribed multiple medications. And then the clashing side effects ended up making someone lose their life, you know? So again, there is a huge problem within the healthcare system and the mental health care system, period. And it's like, where do we find the balance and how do we make it more accessible? And how do we make it to where more healthcare professionals accept insurance too?
Yeah.
That's why I created my whole nonprofit, because one of our highest rates in death by suicide is youth. And it's like, and how will, if I have struggles paying for this, how will they, you know?
Yeah. And youth hopefully will have access to their parents' healthcare if they have it. So hopefully they will have access to that if they decide to use it. But yeah, no, that's a very good point. It's a very our healthcare system is its own monster in its own way. So
Yeah. We're like, we can have an entire interview
yeah,
just on
exactly.
that.
So going back to the movie, one thing I love, it was difficult to see a lot, but I love that like I said, didn't pull any punches. Like the suicide scenes, like the use of practical effects, the use of blood and whatnot. I thought it was effective. I thought it was, important. I assume that you wanted it to look realistic, but was it difficult for you to film these, like kind of like being transported back into those moments, or are you at least far enough removed in a better mental health place where like it was easier for you to film this, or at least, it wasn't as triggering, for lack of a better word, for you to film these?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that question, and yes, there were moments where it was really hard to put on that skin and like to be in those moments, but it's just hard to live them as a human being, even if it wasn't my story. I think if any actor had slipped on Dean's skin, they would have their own struggles living in those moments, right? But I had such a beautiful support system around me on set. My producing partners are like two of my closest people, one of which was my husband. My DP, my entire crew, everyone there had been affected by mental health, suicide, depression in some way or another. So we really were just like a huge family. So I really never felt scared when diving in, because I knew that I had the love and the support of people around me who would make sure I didn't get lost,
Yeah.
and the other difference is I have so many tools in my toolbox that I didn't have when I was 23. Like I am a different person and I've learned so much about my mental health. And again, like I have an army of people, a life coach, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a meditation coach, a nutritionist, fitness trainer. You know what I mean? Like
It takes a village.
yeah, it takes a village. It really does, and especially when you're in the entertainment business, which is like already a very stressful environment. And I say that with complete and utter gratitude, but production is crazy. Never have enough time, enough days. I don't eat when I'm on set. Like it's a whole thing. So I have a very like great support system around me to make sure that I don't put my work first and leave my mental health or my physical health, behind. So yeah, I will say it was definitely difficult to film some of these scenes. There were some really, really hard moments. But having an incredible crew and support system, it made the world a difference for me. It never also being of service. Like I was doing this to try and help someone. And so I find that you don't feel depleted after that. You almost feel empowered. Like that was worth it because I know that will help someone, so when we take it out of like me, and turn it outwards, everything is always better.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely. I know we have limited time. I'm going to switch to just a lightning round, just lightweight questions about the film. Tough to do in this movie, but I tried. You can feel free to skip any of them. I won't be offended, but I tried to keep them very answerable.
Okay.
First question. When was the last time you punched a douchey person?
It's been a long time.
Okay.
I'm 9 years sober, so it was absolutely before I was sober. But I come from Fresno, California, so I've been in a scrap or two. So I'm proud to say it's definitely been over a decade. But
That's
there
good.
are absolutely douchey dudes, and there has absolutely been altercations, which is why I wrote
They
that.
absolutely deserved it too.
Yeah.
Do you still draw or sketch?
Um, I I do. It's blossomed into something else, which is more writing now and even journaling and flowing in that state. So, but everything I do is art. Like another thing is I have a 7-year-old son and he's really into these weird, creepy characters. And so now he's made me start sculpting like of
Oh,
clay,
cool.
like like
That's so cool.
oven baked clay. So what went from like sketching and writing is to now I'll like sit and make something for 10 hours to make him this entire clay statue. So it's evolving. As you become a mom, a lot of shit evolves.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing amazing skill set that you're picking up. That's awesome. And the last question, when was the last time you visited the Golden Gate Bridge?
Wow. When I shot Continue. Which
Perfect.
is, yeah, which is really crazy. I think that's the last time that I've been there recently. Yeah, I think that was my last trip, but I can't give too much information away yet because it hasn't announced, but I am doing a project that is completely about the Golden Gate Bridge and about mental health and life and love and all of these beautiful things. So I'm really excited to say that somehow like full circle, I went from it being like one scene in a movie to like the whole movie very much involves that
Ah,
bridge. So I'll be
that is
there a
awesome.
lot more soon.
That is awesome. And yeah, no, that is definitely an important, it's a beautiful, iconic, place, but then also, as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of people commit suicide from there. So I'm interested to see what your next project is going to be as well.
Thank you.
So you can wait for that next project. You can wait with bated breath. But first, check out Continue coming to the theaters, digital and on demand on December 6, 2024. This is Nadine Crocker, the star, writer, and director. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for making this movie. It was a beautiful film and a very important movie.
Thank you so much. And thank you for going on the journey. I know it's a heavy ride, so I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Thank you so much. That was Nadine Crocker of Continue, which is coming to theaters, digital, and on demand on December 6, 2024. It is a heartfelt, personal, and painful story about one person's descent into depression and mental health and the extent that it took for them to rise up out of it. It is a very heartfelt film. It is a very kind of gruesome film at times, but I did like that it pulled no punches. So definitely check it out when it comes to theaters, digital, and on demand on December 6th. And if you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.